In the Gun, episode 127 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wesley Euler with the best teammates in the business. We've got the band reunited this week, baby. Oh, yeah, the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and fresh off a big win, Big O, the runaway beer truck, down the sideline. Big O going to the state championship, baby. Talk to me. What's up, Greenbrier West?
We're going to the ship, baby. All that hard work is paid off, right? So, man, we got one more week to focus up with these kids. It's been a hell of a journey. Never won a championship with any of the teams that I played on. So this is kind of a neat little experience for me, and glad I got to be a part of it. And I'm glad we got some good coachable kids, man. It's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out there in Wheeling.
Well, and how many championships have you been to?
I haven't been to any.
See, I'm with you in the sense that I've never been on a team that was able to finish the job. Pop Warner lost 2 league championships. High school lost 2 state championships. College lost the national championship game, but always the bridesmaid. So I'm pulling for you, man. I was kind of hoping to be joining you up there. I was on the tarmac in Temple, Texas, and then on a bus watching the Tucker County semifinal game on my phone. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a battle of the Titans with Greenbrier and Williamstown, because Williamstown, we knew going in, whale of a football team, but that's a clash of Titans, guys. That's a battle.
Yeah,
no
Williamstown's a juggernaut. They are, and they have been for many years.
As you guys know, I got some family ties. Shout out Charles Wesley Godwin, family ties to Williamstown. So, but I'm just gonna say this right now. All right, my family could disown me if they want. I don't care. Let's go Greenbrier West. All right, let's get it done.
I appreciate the support.
I'm rooting for Big O, baby. Let's get it done. Is that Friday or Saturday?
It's Saturday, 7:30. Prime time, baby.
They've always done that, Wes. Owen and I were talking about it the other day. Even back to when I was in school, what they've always done, the AA Friday night, which is what I was in back then, the AAA Saturday afternoon, which we typically would stay behind and watch.
Sure.
And then the single A Saturday night. That's been that way for 30 some odd years, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Save the best for last, right?
Yep. Primetime television, baby. 7:30 p.m. Let's go.
I love it. Well, congrats to Big O and all the Greenbrier West boys on a big win. Let's go finish the job on Saturday night, baby, and get it done against Williamstown there in Wheeling. Great stuff, Big O. We're pumped for you, and obviously we'll make sure and keep everybody updated and follow up on that next week when Big O's got that ring on his finger. I don't know why I just did a Boston accent there for that randomly, but we'll move on. One of our familiar names, a familiar face, of course, former head coach. Headline segment here, by the way, brought to you by our friends at Bet Online, where the game starts. Dana Holgorsen is out at the University of Houston after 5 seasons. And Jed, I don't think anybody, on their bingo cards, just a couple years ago when Dana was going 10-2 and the Mountaineers were struggling, at 5-7. I don't think many people would have had Neil Brown outlasting Dana Holgorsen. But here we are. Dana and Houston parting ways. The former WVU head coach no longer with the Cougs.
Yeah, that's the case. And I watched his post-game press conference after the UCF game to see if there might have been some kind of indication. And I'll be honest with you, as somebody who spent a lot of time around Dana through the years, I really don't think there was, at least at that juncture. I don't know what the timeline might have been thereafter, but Tillman Fertitta, the billionaire who obviously is very hands-on with Houston athletics and even the pro scene in Houston. Obviously, this wouldn't happen without him pulling the trigger and saying so. And he's the guy that got Dana in there. So, what Dana was talking about after the UCF loss was, look, the only upside to not having a bowl is we can jump right in Monday to off-season preparation and 2024 for us starts on Monday. And the next thing you know, in the span of the next 24 to 48 hours, the news breaks, and there is no Monday for Dana as the head coach at Houston. But now the question is, what next? Well, his buyout, I think, is in the ballpark of 14, 15 million. So Dana's going to be in no hurry to do anything, I wouldn't imagine. But he can kick back and kind of, and enjoy his money for a while and relax, and then pick and choose whatever comes next for him. But from a candidate standpoint, there have been a lot of names tossed around, but Andy Staples did a terrific job of kind of reducing it down to probably the three most likely names. Two of them are probably on everybody's list, and I think all three should be. He talked about Jeff Traylor, okay, at Texas San Antonio. He's with the Roadrunners right now. He's a former Texas high school coach. He knows the Texas scene very well. First, you would think that whoever Houston's going to bring in, they have to be really dialed in and really connected to Texas high school football with relationships. I mean, you saw the model that Texas Tech, followed with Joey McGuire. Maybe it's something like that. But Jeff Traylor would kind of sort of fit that role. Willie Fritz at Tulane. Not only has he succeeded everywhere he's been, from Tulane to Georgia Southern, but he also spent some time at Sam Houston State. So he understands. He even took a couple of those Sam Houston teams to national championship games. So he understands the inner workings of the Texas high school recruiting game. And then the third one, I thought this was interesting, but on some level, it might even be obvious. Why not Gary Patterson? If anybody knows how to build a program in the state of Texas, it has to be Gary Patterson. He recruited that landscape for 2 decades. So what he would have to do, and this is something Andy Staples did a great job of pointing out, he would have to, if granted an interview, explain how he can connect with the modern player in the age of the portal and NIL, because that was kind of his undoing to some extent. He failed to manage this brand new landscape of college football 2.0 that we talk so much about. And that's what led to the guy with the statue outside the stadium in Fort Worth getting fired. So those are the three names that have come up, in addition to some others. But I think Andy Staples makes a lot of good sense, and I could see any of the three of those guys jumping in there and making the most of the opportunities with what Houston's investing in facilities. They have to get their NIL situation right, which don't we all? But that's kind of what you're looking at as they transition into, I guess we're calling it Power Four now, since the Pac-12 is officially behind us. So interesting in developments in terms of what Houston may do.
Yeah, without a doubt, they got some money to throw around there for sure. So that's another one that we will be keeping an eye on. Jeff Lebby to Michigan State, of course, the Oklahoma offensive coordinator. Or sorry, yes, Mississippi State. Pardon me. Obviously, Mike Leach passing away a little over a year ago. Now, why did my Zoom just give the thumbs up? I don't want to give the thumbs up with Mike Leach passing away. Get out of here, Zoom. Mike Leach, a little over a year ago, we all remember that sad story and that sad moment. Yeah. Well, now Mississippi State making a long-term move here. They go and get Jeff Lebby. He was most recently, obviously, offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. And obviously we saw how that offense was able to perform out the course of this season. So listen, there's been some good coaches that have gone to Mississippi State and done all right. And we'll see if Lebby can kind of be the next one. It's a tough gig there, right? Just the division they play in, the conference that they play in, where Ole Miss is at right now, I think is one of those that's always a big kind of comparing yourself to your in-state rival type of program. But Jeff Lebby going to be the next one to take the reins there for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think the powers that be in Starkville liked where that was going with Mike Leach from an offensive standpoint. They enjoyed the excitement around an explosive offense, and the hire that they made in replacement of Mike Leach, I'm not sure that was done under ideal circumstances. That's why it lasted. It was so short-lived. It only lasted, about a year. But Jeff Lebby stepping in should give them that injection of offense again. He succeeded just about everywhere he's been with every offense he's coached. And it's just so strange to me. It was a short month and a half ago that the fans in Oklahoma were complaining about Jeff Lebby and the Oklahoma offense. And the next thing you know, he's dropping 50 and 60 and almost 70 on everybody in the Big 12 down the stretch, to the point that he gets his own job in the SEC. But yeah, that's a good point on your part, Wes. The barometer is to some extent Ole Miss. because there have been guys step in there and have some success, whether it was Leach, whether it was Dan Mullen, but the sustainability piece has always been the challenge. And with what you're up against in that division of that conference, from a resources standpoint, it's all about when you're looking at a job, you always ask yourself, do the resources match the expectations?
Right.
Okay, how reasonable are the expectations of the fans, of the administration? Am I expected to beat a bunch of teams with more money and more resources than me? And
It's like the Texas
Mississippi
A&M.
State
It's like the
wants to
Texas
win.
A&M thing, right? Like their expectations are through the roof, but so are their resources.
Exactly. Exactly. And Mississippi State's, yeah, they have expectations. Of course they do, but not to this ridiculous extent of the Auburns or the A&Ms of the world, right? So that's a consideration when coaches look at these jobs. Look, where are the expectations? Or how many teams that have more resources and money than me are you expecting me just to show up and consistently beat? And maybe that's not necessarily the case in Mississippi State, but they want a competitive team in the SEC West. So he's going to have to step in there and fight like a dog to score and score right away and win some football games in a tough division. But yeah, interesting hire. And he earned it. You know, if anybody was had a central role to the second year turnaround for Oklahoma under Brent Venables, yeah, the defense has really stopped the bleeding and stopped the hemorrhaging. But this Oklahoma offense with Dylan Gabriel, they've really got humming and put Oklahoma in a pretty good spot.
No, they absolutely have. I think he was one of the more regarded offensive coordinators across the country, if you will. Now he's going to get an opportunity to lead a program there, and he'll get to see his Oklahoma Sooners before much longer as well, too, joining him in the SEC there. Finally, last coaching carousel thing to talk about here. We talked about Dana, former Mountaineer connection. Another one, former Mountaineer quarterback Clint Trickett, out as the offensive coordinator at Marshall, I should say, after things didn't quite go the way they expected down in Huntington this year.
It's kind of a tale of two seasons, and I shot Clint a text a couple of days ago after this played out. This is, guys, why I was telling you off the air. I hate this time of year because so many of my friends are coaches across the country, and yeah, the head coaches might be millionaires, but these guys aren't. So there's a lot of these assistants that are impacted, and it was four assistant coaches at Marshall, including Clint, including Billy Legg, who has West Virginia ties, obviously, but I mean, think about it. It wasn't that long ago that they were marching into South Bend and knocking off a ranked Notre Dame team. I remember shooting Clint texts after that game, and what a big feather in his cap that was. But this year they started off 4-0, seemed like they had things humming. They marched down to NC State. It was a handful for Gibby and Gibby's defense with the Wolfpack. Clint really dialed up a good game plan, and after that shootout loss, they're sitting there at 4-1. But then they had some key injuries; they couldn't stay healthy, and then he went on a skid. And the next thing you know, they're turning the ball over, and they can't move the chains on third down, and it kind of snowballed, and as these things often do. And the next thing you know, I think a coach with a very bright future is now looking for work again in Clint Trickett. But that's the nature of this business sometimes. But hate to see it, but I have no doubt that Clint's going to land on his feet.
Yeah, Clint's talented, and he's definitely going to get another opportunity. He said he's off, and he's going to shoot a big buck in Pocahontas County this week. So best of luck to him.
That's the way he thinks. Yep.
That's it. Hey, sometimes you just got to unplug for a little bit. Go shoot something. Make yourself feel a little bit better. And we do obviously wish all the best to Clint. Hopefully he does land on his feet. And hey, maybe there's a potential reunion spot for him to be found somewhere in Morgantown one of these days. That'll do it for our headline segment. Now, of course, it is time to talk. We've had our stuffing and our mashed potatoes and our green bean casserole, right? But now it's time to get to the turkey, of course, and that is West Virginia's dramatic, to say the least, victory over the Baylor Bears, 34-31 down in Waco. Another last-minute go-ahead touchdown in Texas. This time, the Mountaineers finishing the job, getting it done. Gentlemen, I mean, there is so much to get into. There's the tale of two halves, right? From an offensive standpoint of moving the ball at will in the first half and then really struggling to do so until you needed to. There's, I think, kind of the similar thing with the defense, putting the clamps down in the first half, and then Baylor adjusting and finding their way in the second half. We're going to talk about Zack Frasier and just an incredible way for him to go out at some point. But Jed, I keep coming back. I don't know what it is, but I've been thinking about this all day. You remember last year, okay, in the early days of this podcast, and the first game, of course, that the three of us get to break down was that heartbreaking loss to Pitt in the renewal of the Backyard Brawl. And I remembered you gave us a stat. This has been sticking with me the whole day. You said, I went back and looked, and I don't remember if it was over the last 5 years or the last season in college football, whatever it was, but 83% of the time, you told us, when a team blocks a punt, they win the football game, right? And again, I don't remember if that was the previous season, if that was a 5-year sample size, whatever it was. But you had a statistic that when a team
running
blocks
number in that ballpark.
Yeah, when a team blocks a punt 82, 83% of the time, they win the football game. And, WVU blocked the punt in that game, ended up losing when we were kind of going through some of the different statistical anomalies of that game at this point, 16 months ago when we were having that breakdown. I wonder, gentlemen, how many times a team has given up two kick return touchdowns and gone on to win. I mean, it's got to be less than 10% of the time. It's got to be minuscule. I don't know about you guys. I've never seen a team take back-to-back kickoffs to the house, but I've certainly never seen a team take back-to-back kickoffs to the house and still lose the game. In a crazy night, for whatever reason, that still stands out to me. You gave up 2 back-to-back special teams touchdowns and still found a way to win the game.
Precipitated, Wes, a lot of conversations during the game, after the game. I mean, we were even in the press room, and Greg Hunter and I were talking, and Greg was saying, Jed, from what I could research, looking things up on the fly, he said, I think it was a list of 12 guys in the history of college football who had 2 touchdowns on kickoff returns in one game.
In the history of college football.
If it feels in the history of college football.
Jeez.
And then John Antonic texted me during the game, and I think he might have even tweeted this. As far as we could tell, the only other time that had happened in the history of West Virginia football, if you have a twinge of West Virginia historian in you, you know this game. 1904 Michigan, 130-0. Okay, if you know anything about the old days, the early days of Mountaineer football, that was a Michigan team that picked on everybody. Go back and look at some of those scores from those Michigan teams, 130-0. And now that's back when the rules were different. Touchdowns were of different value. A lot of times you scored, you got the ball back. I mean, it was crazy. So the only other time that we could find, in that case, John, that it had happened was then. So if it feels like you've never seen it, that's probably because you haven't. I mean, Greg's list had 12 guys that had ever done it. Okay, and John's telling me West Virginia hadn't seen it happen since 1904. Well, basically, it was a fundamentally different type of game. So, you're putting yourself more than behind the 8 ball. But I will say this, too. And these are the conversations that, I like talking quarterback stuff with Garrett. We geek out about the position kind of conversations. And the quarterback in me, I would always do this. Anytime there was a special teams touchdown, anytime. Or if there was a defensive touchdown, even, if, I was stupid enough to throw a pick and they returned it for a touchdown, or if there was a fumble and a scoop and score, anytime there was a touchdown, there was a sudden change touchdown. Okay. My immediate thought, especially in the circumstance of that game in the second quarter, when that was happening, we were dominating that game. Their defense couldn't get off the field. We were unstoppable offensively. And I looked at Garrett and I said, now you know what you get to say? You get to point at their defense and say, hey, guys, right back out here, buddy. No break for you. Let's go. No blow for you at all. Right back out here. And that is the greatest feeling for a quarterback. You're like, hey, if ever there's a chance to lift my team up. That defense was already sagging at the end of that last long drive. And now they're thinking they can get over there. They get to regroup. Okay, they get to take a Gatorade shot. Hey, that fire's still burning. Back out here, buddy. And that happened twice in the same quarter, the back out here, buddy moment. So maybe it's just weird that the quarterback in me sees that as an opportunity, because I see it as a chance to lift my team up. Hey, they need us now, and we're really going to go lean on this defense even more than we already were. But you are making life difficult to the extreme, And there were so many different moving parts about this. It's almost like, I remember, to get way out in the weeds here briefly, I remember the 1991 league championship series with the Pirates and the Braves, how that ended with the Sid Bream scoring from second, the
You are way
Francisco
out in the
Cabrera
weeds
single
here.
delay. Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm saying it. Okay. Francisco Cabrera singles, off Stan Belinda. Barry Bonds tries to throw Bream out at the plate. Well, Gibby and Chris George and I are sitting, my place in Glenville, and just our hearts are breaking. We collapse to the floor. And I remember the next year, the Elias Sports Analysis, the baseball Elias analyst book that came out each year was just, it was a stat guy's geeky dream, right? Well, they picked one thing that happened each previous season and broke it down statistically. And they talked about all the unlikely parts of that play. Like, career wise, Francisco Cabrera was 1 for 5 against Stan Belinda with 1 home run. Sid Bream was dead last among all National League runners in scoring on singles from second base. Barry Bonds was #1 in stopping guys from scoring. So all these unlikely things. And all I could think was the guy who did this to us returned 7 kickoffs total all year. He touched the football on a kickoff return 7 times all year. He wasn't even their regular guy. And he ends up, what do you have, like a 21-yard average coming into the game on a paltry 7 returns? He's the guy who does that. And I also couldn't help but think earlier in the year, when the ball had a little more give to it, you guys may or may not have noticed, these kickers, Michael Hayes and beyond for West Virginia, they were doing a better job of banging these things through the end zone or in the end zone. But later in the season, as the temperature drops, the ball gets a little stiffer, it's tougher to do that. So now as you approach, November football, there's going to be more kick returns because you're not driving it into the end zone with a flexible ball. So I'm thinking that dude doesn't do that to us if it's October. But now, since it's late November, here we go, a stiffer ball. He's going to get his chances. And then we have 1 kicker and 10 chances to shed blocks. And we don't do it. We don't do it. Not once. But I remember Coach Wallace saying on the broadcast, he literally said on the broadcast after Richard Reese's first kickoff return, he's like, hey, guys, here are the problems. You didn't shed those blocks. You created lanes. And if you don't fix that issue, it's going to happen again. You don't think he'll do it again. He'll do it again. And it just dawned on me when Dwight said that, yeah, that is possible. It could happen again. You've just never seen it happen again. And wouldn't you know it, just a short few minutes later, it happens again. It was almost like you couldn't believe what you were watching. It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen on a football field.
Yeah, and with somebody who, I made my career kind of last in the NFL playing special teams, and I'm coaching special teams now in high school. It almost seemed like it was the same play both times, honestly. Yeah. And just, you wonder how that happens, because in my opinion, you should never get blocked on a kickoff. You should never get blocked. There's too many odds against the return team. You have more of an advantage. They're basically backpedaling.
You're running downhill. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You already have a head start. It's just like, so when it does happen, I feel like guys are maybe being over aggressive, trying to take on blocks when they really should be kind of seeing where the runner is and taking a shot. I'd say like my biggest theory on kickoff is like, look, I got 2 guys that are my screamers. They basically just run down there and take shots on the returner. And most of the time, they might make the play. But most of the time what happens is the returner has to slow down or make a move, right? So he can't have that full head of steam, because what ends up happening is once that runner gets to top speed, it doesn't take much for him to hit a seam and go. And if you kind of watch like what happened during the game, that's kind of like what happened. We got sucked in and pinned, and that guy kicked it out basically and hit a seam up the hash both times. And I mean, he was moving.
When you did this, where did you typically play? In other words, for those listening or those watching, oftentimes the way kickoff coverage breaks down, you have the kicker in the middle. So you have 5 coverage defenders to your left, 5 to the right. Typically, that's numbered L1 through L5 and R1 through R5. And Owen's talking about the screamers. Owen, I would imagine that's your L5 and your R5, your screamers, right?
Yeah.
So
they called back
you?
in the day, they called us wedge busters, because you were able to create wedges. Yeah, the human wall
which
where
is
you
illegal
basically
now.
lock arms. Yeah, it's illegal now, but it was like it was like you had to be kind of crazy to. I mean, that's where they put you. You know, what I mean, you were the guy who ran down there as fast as you could and took on an 8,000-pound man wall, and just tried to blow the wedge up. I mean, that's in the name, wedge buster. But now, since that stuff's kind of taken away, it gives a little more advantage to the kickoff team. But that's what I was saying. Like, my theory behind it is kind of, you still have those wedge busters, but there's no wedge to bust anymore. So they go down and they just take shots, and try to get the guy moving, you know what I mean, laterally versus
down,
downhill.
cutting,
Yeah, because once he has to move laterally, he's slowed down. Then you can really, that umbrella starts to tighten up.
Yeah.
And you can cage him up. But it just, like I said, it seemed like we kind of got pinned, and it looked like it was like the 3 on the left side both times. He just got sucked in, and like I said, if you don't make that guy go, left or right, once he hits top speed north and south, it's tough to catch a guy because you're running opposite ways.
Yeah, what kickoff coaches always talk about is indecision is your best friend, because if you can create indecision, that's what I was talking about. If you can create indecision from the return man, any kind of indecision is going to give you a chance to rally to the football and converge on that. And it's very obviously, I've never done it unless you want to count, kickoff return safety in high school, which I don't count at all, right? And oh, by the way, I am zero surprised that you were a wedge buster. I am zero.
No,
I've been shocked that you weren't.
I would have bet.
mean,
I would have bet the mortgage that was Owen's role. Yeah.
I mean, like when you travel in football circles and you talk about like old school, like Owen said, that's illegal now because there were so many injuries and this and that. But there was a certain type of person back in the days of the wedge that you expected on your roster as the wedge buster. And Owen Schmidt's that guy. Now,
Jed, just
say
the psycho who loved breaking face masks, right?
Yes.
I mean, that was ours in high school was a farm boy named Kevin, and he relished the wedge buster role.
He loved it. He loved it.
A quick side story on the wedge buster. So Dan Moses is playing for Minnesota. I'm playing for Seattle. It's my rookie season. We're playing in Minnesota. So I had like 50, 60 people from my hometown came to the game, right? It's a preseason game, but it's the first game. And I'm R5. David Hawthorne was the L5 on the other side of the ball. He played for TCU. He was a hell of a linebacker. Special teams, absolute psychopath, which, gave him notoriety, which he ended up evolving into his linebacker position, which that's what he played. But so, opening kickoff, and they have a 3-man wedge going. So, roughly a 900-pound wall, probably more closer to 1,000-pound wall. Each one of them linemen were over 300 pounds. So I go down there, and man, I pick my guy out and I smoke him right underneath the chin. And I'm telling you what, I put this guy was 315, maybe 320. You know what I mean? Put him on his arse, right? Put him on his arse, get a shoestring in there. I get an assist. I mean, I rocked him, dude. I was jacked up. Okay, I was jacked up. Okay, first play, I'm hyped. Gotta see Dan over there. I'm like, yo, bro. And so next kickoff, dude, they were ready. And all 3 of them hit me. And the first thing that hit the ground was the back of my head.
Oh.
I mean, it was like I was on skates, man.
Wes, how do we find this video?
I was going to say there's got to be some athletic director that has this on a VHS in their office, right, Jen?
Yeah, this would have to be back in Seattle 08 or something. You know what I mean?
So you're saying Seattle at Minnesota?
Equipment guy, yeah.
Well, it would have been. I was playing for Seattle, so it would have been there. It might be in their archives if they even keep stuff that.
Wait, actually, you know what? I'm trying. You said 2008.
Yeah.
Like, man, you get like the NFL All 22 pass goes back years.
Yeah,
I'll have to.
You could look up stuff like that.
Oh, but so you guys know, I do the show with Arthur Moats, who was a linebacker in the NFL for 9 years, right? Played for the Bills, played for the Steelers, and and he pulls up, like, he's got the all-22 pass and the NFL Plus access and all that.
So he's got all the film.
He pulls up highlights from like 2010 when he was with a rookie with the Bills all the time. So
That's
if it goes back another year or two, I'll have to ask him this week, Big O. I'll be like, hey, how far back does this go? Can you find me the Seahawks Vikings game from 2008?
Wes, you have your off-season episode list.
I do actually, and it's funny because look, it's right here. It's right.
There
if you're watching, listen, if you're watching on YouTube, first of all, my Avon Coburn jersey that I've repurposed as a Jaheim White jersey, please note. Also, if you look here at the list from last year's off-season topics, what does it say right there, fellas? I know my handwriting's bad, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but it says Wedge Buster right there.
Owen, my only Wedge Buster story, because I very obviously wasn't one, or there would have been big problems. I was whatever the opposite of that would be. But when I played arena ball, we went on an exhibition tour of Spain. The Arena League did. I played for the New York Firebirds. We spent a month in Spain, touring 3 cities to play against the Milwaukee Mustangs. And what we did was we hit Zaragoza in northern Spain, Granada in southern Spain. Then we wrapped up the tour in Madrid. And what they did for the last week of the tour, they each team signed one Spanish native that played in their leagues over there. Okay. And what they were going to do was they had to find a position for them on our team. And they were like, for a couple of days, the biggest celebrities in all of Spain. Like, we're in the team hotel in Madrid, and guys, we're like, we didn't meet these guys yet. Like, Antonio was going to be on the team. He was going to meet us tomorrow morning for practice. The game was Saturday. He was going to start practicing Wednesday. Okay. So awesome. The Spanish version of the David Letterman show, their national late night talk show, both these guys were the celebrity guests on that show. So we're all in the hotel watching it. We're like, hey, they're going to be at the team meeting in the morning. So, Owen, guess what they did with this poor dude? They made him the wedge buster on the kickoff team. So he comes out there. We're playing in these indoor bike arenas that seat 20,000 people, right? So it's kind of this nutty environment anywhere for the Arena League. So he comes out on the field to start the game. We're about to kick off. And of course, in the Arena League, you're kicking off and it's going off the net and all this crazy nonsense. Yeah. And if you truly can have a wedge buster, he's leading the charge. So he comes out on the field, and of course, it's 20,000 Spaniards in the stand. So they went berserk. They blew the roof off this place cheering for him. And the ball's kicked off, and he went down there and got decimated.
Dude.
He was like 195 pounds. He got destroyed. We're all like, oh, man. He barely got up from that thing. But that's my wedge buster story.
There's a lot of carnage.
Fantastic. There's a lot of carnage. There's certainly a lot of carnage. Well, gentlemen, it's funny how we can laugh about it now. I mean, if we end up losing that game,
well, we won, so yes.
Yeah, we're sitting here pulling. I mean, that's the fine lines of victory and defeat, right? We're pulling our hair out about those back-to-back touchdowns, and we're hearkening back to, it was a kick return in Houston that really started to swing the momentum in that game as well. Yeah. There were a lot of things about that game that reminded me of the Cougs game in a weird way. But fortunately, everybody kept their helmets on after we scored the go-ahead touchdown this time.
Did you see Garrett after the game-winning touchdown? I first of all, I was the idiot on the sideline with my phone and video in the touchdown from beginning to end, and he literally runs up the sidelines out of the end zone with his hands in the air, like, I'm not doing nothing. Yeah, he literally did it. He was
talking a little trash to some Baylor fans behind the bench, though. They showed that.
Trust me, they had a comment. Because here's the other thing. I was fearful going into that game that, look, the rain's starting early. It wasn't supposed to start till later. It was nasty. This is going to be an absolute pit-style ghost town, okay? It wasn't a large crowd, but it was not a ghost town. All the students were there, right behind the damn bench. All of them. I mean, that student section was packed, and there was enough of a crowd in the stadium. Again, it was sporadic. I'm sure if you were watching on TV, it was far less than impressive. But it was one of those deals, guys, that it seemed like, you know how we always say at Mountaineer Field, if it's the right 30,000, the right 40,000, it's noisy.
The people who were there were engaged. They were engaged.
It got noisy. Game, yeah. Those third downs were noisy. And I kept thinking, look, it's raining. It's miserable. At least when we have the ball, it is. But why can't it rain enough to get you people out of here? I almost want a ghost town now. I went from thinking we were going to have to create our own energy and that kind of scary environment because it's so flat to thinking, man, these guys are loud on third down. But So yeah, that's the other complaint I would have. The rain started early. And then I swear it was like they were hitting a button. They were bringing the dome up. Every time they got the ball, every time they were kicking, the rain completely stopped. Every time in the first half, every time we got the ball, every time Michael Hayes was kicking, it was raining sideways. So anyway, we persevered. We overcame that. We overcame everything that all the shortcomings of the third quarter into the early fourth quarter.
Ooh.
We overcame all that. Okay. All that. And much like an Alabama team facing Auburn, who last week got beat by 3 touchdowns by New Mexico State. They dug down deep. They found the 4th and goal miracle from the 31. Sometimes in college football, you got to do that. Look,
Yep.
these guys showed up. It was senior night. That crowd was energetic, but not large. The students all turned out. I got to tip my cap to that Baylor student section. That was impressive. Huge crowd right behind our bench. Those seniors wanted it. Dave Aranda wanted it. There's a couple NFL guys on that roster. 3-8, 3-9, 3-109. I don't care. They were playing hard trying to win that football game. And we had a couple chances to put them away, but they stuck around with those kick returns. And then they stuck around the third quarter with some conversions, and they started making some things happen. And the strange way momentum works. I mean, that's the beauty of the game of football. Sports in general, but I think more specifically football, the momentum, sometimes it's a guy stepping up to grab that thing by the collar and bring it back in. And at what point do you guys want to discuss what we saw on the final possession?
So here's what you guys could tell me if I'm wrong here, but I was thinking maybe we bring Big Daddy in for that as well too.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Because we got to talk with him about the emotions of that, everything that transpired with Zach. I mean, we got to talk a little bit more about Garrett. We got to talk a little bit more about Jaheim White, without a doubt. So I think, does that sound good to you guys? It's a good time to break, and we'll get Big Daddy in here. Real quick,
Big Daddy and I had a good time.
Again, one of those things that we can laugh about. So, one road trip. Again, I always feel like I should caveat this because I know we pick up new listeners along the way. It's some of our diehards, some of our casuals, people who are just jumping in. I work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. So Saturday I'm in Cincinnati because the Steelers play Sunday, and the Steelers once a year have this big, I mean, for lack of better terms, you could call it a media dinner. Okay. They do it on one road trip every year. They invite all the people who are on the road covering the team, working for the team. It's a blend of media people and team employees and all that different kind of stuff. Well, it happened Saturday at a lovely establishment in Cincinnati called the Montgomery Inn, by the way. We had a great time. Shout out to the fine folks. Yeah. Shout out to the fine folks at the Montgomery Inn. But everybody knows, I mean, I'm in my I'm at this fancy dinner in my WVU bomber jacket, right? Because the Mountaineers are playing. I'm sitting at my table with the game streaming on my phone as the Mountaineers are playing, right? And finally they put the game on. There's one TV in like this private room that we have that's like just rolling like stock footage and stock ads and stuff for the restaurant. Finally, we get them to put the game on, all this stuff. Gentlemen, there was probably 40, 50 people at this dinner, okay, all in a private room at this really nice restaurant. When Baylor had that second of the kick return touchdowns, everybody was looking at me. All 50 people in this thing are like, wait, did that just happen? Is Wes, what's going on with Wes? Is Wes okay back there? Oh my God, everybody look at Wes. Check out Wes. How angry is he? And one of the Steelers video guys, Gerard, she's like the Sean of the Steelers, okay? His name's Gerard. Looks at our waitress and goes, ma'am, my guy in the WVU bomber jacket over there needs another Miller Lite. All right, please make it quick. Because they were all watching me watch the Mountaineers, which is always an adventure, certainly. But we have to talk more about Garrett Green. We got to talk more about Jaheim White, Big 22. We also, of course, have to talk about that final drive and just, I mean, we're sitting here on the podcast with a guy who had a legendary end to his WVU football career. Zack Frasier certainly just had himself a legendary end to his WVU football career. So we'll get to all of that on the other side as we wrap some Baylor thoughts with Big Daddy when we return. You are in the gun.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
For more West Virginia Mountaineer football content, be sure to follow us on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Let's go, Mountaineer fans. You're tuned in to In the Gun with Wes, the Runaway Beer Truck, and the Signal Caller.
Back in the gun here, and it's fitting as this is our final segment recapping the regular season. We've got our day one, our handsome, tubby man of gold, Sean Big Daddy Mariner. Brought to you by our friends at Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Big shout out to our guy JR doing great stuff for W. Listen, it's NIL season, folks. All right, portal's opening. It's time to put our money where our mouth is. Get involved with the Country Roads Trust and support those who support our student athletes. And Toothman Ford is certainly at the top of that list. All right, gentlemen.
Starting quarterbacks in the Big 12 in the portal already.
Yeah,
buckle up. Yeah,
that's right. I don't think we have to worry about ours, but that's right.
Yeah.
We do need to talk a little Garrett Green. We do need to talk a little Jaheim White. We just need to talk Sean's experience down there in Waco in general. But, gentlemen, maybe we've buried the lead a little bit because we got to talk. We got to start that last drive. And, yes, Garrett Green. And, yes, Jaheim White. And, yes, just a Herculean effort when nothing was going their way in the second half to snatch that one away from Baylor and snatch their souls there on senior night. But, man, I don't know if you can tell that story. You certainly can't tell that story, but I think that story begins with Zack Frasier. I mean, anyone who's listened to this podcast for longer than 5 minutes knows how we all feel about Zack. Just the numbers alone, right? Going from an offense that averaged 73 rush yards per game when he first got here, and it was like a miracle if we broke 100, to now 234 yards per game, the best in the Power 5, an offensive line that allowed the second fewest sacks in Power 5 football, an offensive line that at one point went over 200 straight snaps without allowing a sack.
Aren't up for the National Offensive Line.
Yes. You know, as Jed broke down last week, apparently not good enough, and he had some fun conversation with Neil on the coach's show last week about that as well too.
Coach Moore pulled me aside last week and was like, "Well, not too happy, but okay." Like, yes, sir.
And hey, the anchor of all that, of course, was one Zack Frasier, center. And gentlemen, we are, I said this before we went to break as kind of a tease, but we're sitting here with a guy, he's right below me on the Zoom screen here, who had about as legendary of an end of his Mountaineer career as any of us could imagine. Not only the runaway beer truck down the sideline, right, Big O, but of course the heartfelt, impassioned speech that you gave at the end of that game. And, I told my teammates we're not leaving here without that trophy. And so happy to play for this state as Country Roads plays in the background. It was like a fairy tale. It really was, Big O, your final moments as a West Virginia football player. Different type of fairy tale for Zack, of course. I don't know if I would call it a fairy tale when you end up sustaining a serious injury, but it just sums him up as a player, doesn't it? He's pushing, was it Preston Fox, right, guys? Preston Fox? Hudson Clement. He's pushing Hudson Clement to a first down with a minute left in the game as the Mountaineers are trying to go and snatch victory on the road. He gets tackled. He gets rolled up on from behind. He's injured, and he has the wherewithal to, oh, crap, if I lay down here hurt, they're going to have to run 10 seconds off the clock. Not only does he push his guy across the first down line, not only does he get injured in the process of that, he also gets his injured ass off the field so that the team can keep going. Sean, I tell you what, I can only imagine what the emotions and everything were like around that. But again, that's Zack Frasier in a nutshell. Makes the play, gets injured, still gets off the field.
Yeah.
And wow, that's one that we're all going to remember for a long, long time.
If you go back and watch the TV copy, right? We've been around Zack for years. He is a calm river. There's no up, there's no down, there's just Zack, right? Smooth as silk. If you watch the TV copy, he gets to the sideline. He finally gets off. We get clear. And for the first time in what I believe to be his career, Jed, you can tell me whether I'm wrong or right. The camera stays on him and you can see him. He probably yells an expletive. He emotes with his hands. And right there, you knew something like that's it. Something is wrong. And
where were you on the sidelines, Big Daddy? You were near me, right?
So now let me tell you this. To everybody watching, to everybody listening, okay, you are welcome. 2 minutes left. Baylor gets the second first down to take it within 2 minutes. I say, we're changing something here. I go in, I set up the press conference. I go into the press conference room, I set it up. Montoro and Fergale come in. Fergale says they're kicking a field goal. I need to get out there. I say, you go. I wait another minute as I'm walking back out onto the field. And Jed, you know, Baylor's tunnel is beautifully dark and it's gorgeous. It is quite literally the light at the end of the tunnel. You walk right into that southeast end zone and it's a gorgeous view. Okay. As I'm walking out down the tunnel, I see Jaheim Wright run into the end zone. As I step foot onto the field, drops in the bucket. There we go, boys. And I walk down the sideline to watch the last couple of plays. So you're welcome.
So that's where you were.
Yes.
Wow.
So I get out there, I see Zack, and that's when I go, okay, let's fill me in here. Where everybody's celebrating, and then Doug and Nick.
See, I just view you as omnipresent on the sideline for road games. Nope. I mean, you and I are together.
I had to change it up when they got that second first down. I was like, I got to go. We got to change something here. I got to do what I can.
Well, here was my perspective. I was, if I had to guess, 12 yards upfield from where it happened, and so immediately when you saw that, you knew he was hurt. You knew he was hurt. Now, none of us knew the extent of it, but when you saw Zack leave, that told you the extent of it. Okay, that told me Zack isn't injured, or Zack isn't hurt, he's injured. Because Zack doesn't leave a football game. That's Zack Frasier. He's made of iron. He's bulletproof. He's the best among us. All these things. Pick your adjective. He doesn't leave. When he left, and the nature in which he left, working his way as quickly as possible on one foot toward our bench, toward us, it was this eerie. You knew why he was doing it, and you're like, wow, there's something really wrong. There's something really wrong. And as you said, he got down there and the reaction kind of told you. And meanwhile, no time to react. He had 2 seconds to decide this. He had 2 seconds. Literally from the time he got hit and tackled from the backside, he Deacon Jones head slapped that D tackle first. He got him good.
The hit, it's unreal.
That guy comes back from behind him, tackles him from behind as he's pushing Huddy for the first down to move the chains. So let's do the math here. Huddy wasn't going to make that first down.
He was 4 yards short.
So first of all, it's a live clock. There's a minimum 10 seconds because of the live clock. The only reason the clock stopped is because Zack got him to the chains to stop the clock. So that's a minimum 10 seconds right there. Maybe 13 seconds. And I'll get back to that in a moment. Right there. Now, the runoff would be an additional 10 seconds. So first, he saved us 10 to 13 seconds by pushing him and willing him to the sticks, which he wasn't going to make it on his own. So he stopped the clock, and we saved time there. Now Zack gets off the field to save us an additional 10 because he knew the runoff rule. I've always said Zack Frasier is a quarterback in an O-lineman's body. There's not a compliment that I would pay to the brightest quarterback in the game that I would not pay to Zack Frasier. He's that smart of a football player. No doubt about it. On every level, every part of his game, there's no hole in it. As all this is happening, Matt is gathering Brandon Yates on the fly, Matt Moore, and Brandon Yates doesn't have a warm-up snap, stone cold off the bench, doesn't have anything. He's literally sprinting full speed to hurry up and line up, and Barkley and snap the ball. Boom. All that happens simultaneously. So now let's do the math here. Zack saved us, in my estimation, a minimum of 10, could have been 12, 13, whatever, just because of the first down, because of the movement of the chains. Then the 10-second runoff. That adds up, if I'm doing my math right, to 20 to 23 seconds. 23 seconds on the clock when Jaheim scored. This does not happen but for Zack Frasier doing what he did. That was one of the most remarkable things these eyes have ever seen in a sporting event.
We talked all season about how important he is to the team, obviously, as a player, as a captain, and as a teammate. They scored the touchdown. I'm on the sidelines getting ready to watch the kick, see the defense and everything. The entire O-line, as they're passing me, is asking about him post game. We are in the locker room. Neil is giving his speech. They're body surfing him. 3 linemen come up behind me. They're not body surfing Neil, come up behind me. And one of them leans in and tells me what happened to Zack, what the injury was. And the other 2 are just standing there. They've been in the medical room, in the locker room with the team captain just to check on him. He means so much to the team as a player, but even more so as a person, that he had multiple people in there with him, making sure he was okay, rather than in the locker room jumping around and celebrating because they were worried about him.
Let's set the
know
scene
it's a teammate, you can have a better compliment.
Yeah.
The way this worked out, you were right outside the training room. The training room's adjacent and it's part of the locker room, right? So what happened was, and I had this extra mic from Tony. It's Tony's mic that I have to use for my phone to do the post game. You've seen my setup there, Big Daddy, my big fancy setup, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was still out under the quarterback's tent. It fell out of my bag. So I had to leave the locker room and go back out to the tent and fetch that thing and get back in before Neil went to the media room. So in the middle of the crowd surfing and everything else, I was on the other side of the training room because that's the way the locker room was set up. You had to navigate around the crowd of the team, right? So I was on the other side of the training room. Well, what I saw, it's almost hard to talk about. Oh, in the O-line. Oof. Wow.
I've never seen this side of Jed before. I love it.
It was hard. When I walked by, I didn't want to interrupt, but when the training staff, when our professionals who have already had to do some terrible things this year are in there with their heads down and their hands on his shoulder, and Zack is just arms shaking, staring, not in any kind of fear or anything, but he's, a little restless leg, and he's just staring off. And you've never seen Zack Frasier like that.
I saw the O-line being told. I wish I hadn't. And then I walk around the corner. You're there, Big Daddy. You're right by the door of the training room. And that's when you see Zack sitting. In other words, there were 2 ways into that training room. From the one side of the door, I saw the O-line. I saw Doug. I saw Wyatt. I saw the whole crew in there. They were being told what had happened. And their reaction told me, this isn't good. That'll stick with me. And then I saw you as I rounded the corner. So first I saw the O-line. I'm piecing this together. You're the one who told me. So then you lean in and told me. As I'm looking at Zack, you're in my ear telling me.
Yeah.
After I just saw the O-line. Now I got to get back to the field and grab this gear and get back in. So now I work my way back past the training room. Here comes Zack's mom flying, almost in a sprint. Behind her, here comes Ray, Zack's dad. He looked at me. Ray and I played against each other, right? He looked at me. Right away, just everything. I said, oh. I just grabbed his shoulder and clenched as he kept moving, and on we went. And I'm telling you guys what I saw on that field. That's what I was telling Owen. There's a certain category of plays. Okay. I mean, we're all going to remember different plays for different reasons. Major's run, that's one reason. Pat White's run against Louisville, that's one reason. Okay. But then there's the almost the what am I looking for here? The iconic type folklore plays. Owen busting a belly play as a Fox announcer brandishes him forever, the runaway beer truck. In that same gallery of plays is what we watched Zack Frasier do. I mean, it was amazing.
In the West Virginia parlance, that's a John Henry play.
Yeah.
That is an iconic, legendary, bigger than anything you could ever imagine.
Well, yeah,
it just happened.
Yeah.
I hope too. Like I think because you felt the reaction on social media over the last 48 hours or so. But I hope it doesn't take a bunch of WVU obsessed dorks like us to realize that either. You know what I mean? Like I hope even the casualist of casual WVU fans amongst our fan base realizes not only what Zack has meant for 3 years, but just everything that transpired in that moment on Saturday night as well too. Because it's easy, like Jed said, it's easy when it's Big O rumbling for, what was it, 60, 70 yards, and you get brandished the runaway beer truck, right? One of the great nicknames. And then Owens on national TV crying and pouring his heart out about what it meant. Like, even the most casual of WVU fans can pick up on that. You got to be a little in tune to pick up on what Zack did. And I do hope that's something that permeates. And again, like I said, not just the select percentage of the fan base that's invested like the four of us are, all in our different ways. I hope that's one that everybody recognizes.
Now, when it's such a bang play like that too, and
that's the thing.
It's kind of a seamless transition, so you don't really see, what's really going on. The thing to me, being fortunate enough to have a career beyond Mountaineer football is the fact that this guy has given so much. West Virginia native, grew up 20 minutes down the road. Exceptional athlete, has worked his tail off, has given nothing but blood, sweat, and tears for Morgantown. And in the last game he plays, regular season game he plays for the Mountaineers, suffers an injury, which, is not good. It's not good for him going forth as he should have been able to been sent off, playing a bowl game, having a great career, illustrious career at West Virginia, and then going into the Senior Bowl and then NFL draft and being able to start his career. Now he has, a whole nother road against him and another battle that he's going to have to overcome with this setback. And it is a setback, but it's something that, when you are truly invested with, it's hard not to get emotional about, players getting injured. If you don't feel for when a player gets injured, I really do question your involvement or your fandom as far as what you feel for the program, what it's really about. These are young men that are putting their bodies on the line, so that we can have, great Saturday afternoons and celebrate our alma mater. But, in the football world, it doesn't get any tougher than that. And that's really the play that defines you. And as far as that goes, you don't go down any harder. That's, like you said, that's a John Henry. That's a Paul Bunyan. That's a, absolute John Wayne of West Virginia play. So obviously, speedy recover for Zack here. And it's tough not to feel when somebody he's been the tip of the spear for the Mountaineers for the last 3 years.
A long time.
So, you know, and a guy who completely embodies what a Mountaineer is.
Everything. Go ahead, Big Daddy.
I was going to say the brighter side of this is if there's one guy that I know is going to bounce back from anything because he's the toughest bastard I've ever been around, it's Zack Frasier. And silver lining to all this, we're on the buses, we fly out of Waco, we go to the airport, we're holed up a while for the first bus to unload. We see why. A golf cart has come. A golf cart takes Zack to the plane. We're on the 5th bus, so when we're getting on, we're the last people getting on the plane so we can take off and get out. Zack is sitting in first class like he always does, surrounded by his fellow linemen, and he's got a smile on his face. You know the pain that he's in, you know how upset he is, but he's with his guys.
And I'll say this. People said, well, how could he know so quickly to not fall prey to that rule and get off the field? I'm like, look, knowing Zack, I would have been shocked had he not.
Yeah.
Knowing Zack, I would have been shocked.
Yeah.
Had he taken longer, because that's just who he is. But I'm going to say this, and I'm glad you said that, Big Daddy, because I've been making a point to people, bouncing back's never had its ass kicked like it's about to.
Yeah.
This never faced Zack Frasier.
Let's go back a little bit. Imagine you're a sophomore in high school in the heavyweight division, and you have to go up against him in high school, let alone the human being has become. Imagine what he was like then to see who he is now.
And somebody,
like him getting off
April,
the field,
and
we're
Sean,
like, that was high school state wrestling champion Zack Frasier getting his ass back into the mat. Like
somebody
Sean,
in late April or early May. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I just wanted clarification. This is also the same guy. I remember Sean told us this story, but I remember 90% of it. He approached you guys, right, about adding closed captions to the videos?
I believe it was for his brother or his cousin. Yeah, he was like, hey, can we do that?
He learned sign language.
He learned sign language and got
with his family.
WVU. Yeah.
He's signing to his family member. He learned sign language to communicate with her. It's like somebody in late April, early May. I don't have the dates of the draft in front of me, Wes. You're going to be out there.
It's
February. This story will be told.
The draft is April. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this story needs told by Zack Frasier on a microphone to you when you're in Indianapolis. But that's
buddy, you already know. I can't wait to talk. I can't wait to talk about this at the combine and to talk to him.
Somebody in some war room. You said late April. Somebody in some war room is going to put his name up on the board and submit it, and Roger Goodell is going to call his name out. And let me tell you, part of the reason they'll call his name out when they do is because of what just happened and what he's about to do after it happened. They're going to say, can you believe this kid? First of all, we were already in love with him, but look what happened to him and look what he did after that. This is going to be part of his story. This is going to be part of the reason, part of the narrative, right, Owen? The reason you want that guy in your locker room, the reason you want him as one of the faces of your franchise, because of the way he bounced back to one of the greatest adversities he's ever faced. He's going to bounce back from this in spades, no doubt in my mind. And Wes, I will also say,
Jed, please.
Preston Fox left. You talk about leaving it on the field. Preston Fox needs a shout out because Preston Fox made. I hope you appreciated watching that on TV because
that catch was phenomenal.
In person, it was
spectacular. I literally thought Garrett was under pressure. The ball sailed a little bit. I thought, no chance. He's catching it. No chance. He turned into Mr. Fantastic, stretched his body. Talk about reckless abandon, came down, not protecting himself at all. And that's what led to the injury. And absolutely left it all on the field to make that catch. So incredible job also. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Preston Fox because as Zack left it on the field, Preston Fox left it on the field. This is a great football team full of quality guys, tough guys. And I'm telling you, if there's we always talk about the West Virginia football Mount Rushmore, right? We've had these conversations even on the pod before, right? Well, what if there's a West Virginia football toughness Mount Rushmore? Our guy Owen's on it, right?
Yeah.
Zack's next to him.
There's a long list of
let's
very
throw in
tough
Sam Huff and let's have a
there.
conversation. That's what I say. You know,
if we could somehow make the Mount Rushmore be a picture of like Zack holding Owen too, like I think that'd be heaven on earth
with Grant Wiley standing over his shoulder.
Now, Wes, I'm going to get you fired up a little bit here because I know imagine a world in which all of the Yinzers that I see get their wish and old Zachariah ships another hour up north. So he's still within an hour and a half of his homeland. Could you imagine?
Well, part of me, obviously, you guys know I'm torn on this because part of me would love it. The Steelers desperately need a center, and I would love it if Zack Frasier
Please.
was that guy. But also at the same time, I don't know if all the Pitt and Penn State dorks deserve Zack Frasier that root for the Steelers.
That's very fair.
Now, listen,
I
sit
think
there and
Penn
argue
State
about
ones,
Kenny Pickett and Pat Fryermuth and all that. I don't know if they deserve a WVU guy like this. All those dorks.
The Penn State folks are already on our side. You know that after the first game
actually,
this season,
that's a good point.
all the Penn State folks are like, okay, yeah. So
you know what? All these West Virginia fans root against Kenny Pickett, so I'm going to root against Zack Frasier. Yeah.
I could already see it now.
So Zack Frasier. Go ahead, Wes.
No, I was just going to say, I want to make sure we give a big shout out to Brandon Yates in this conversation as well, too.
Unreal.
Because you want to
Water.
talk about as seamless of a transition as you
Watch
could get.
the TV copy back. They have an ISO of him coming out on the field. He's just turns around, says something to Garrett, nods his head. Boom.
He was ready.
And 2 plays later, we're in the end zone. And just
guys,
five man protect.
I want to walk you through what happened here in a second on that protection. Okay. With a backup center, quote unquote, in the game. All right. Zack Frasier set the table for all that followed. Right. And to some extent, so did Preston Fox. Almost a precursor of this. At halftime, I was having this conversation with Garrett before he jumped in with the quarterbacks when Sean came out. Baylor was driving with 2 minutes to go. Okay. Then we had the negative yardage play. I'm trying to remember if it was a sack or a TFL, followed by they had a holding call. Okay. And we had 3 timeouts. So there's 2 minutes to go. And there's a holding call against Baylor. And for a brief moment, we kind of weighed the pros and cons of accepting the penalty. You remember? And Neil said, yeah, back him up. So he backed him up. And then he immediately took his first time out. Okay. And I was sitting there thinking, again, I'm a clock management geek. I'm a nerd. That's
Oh, no.
I was thinking was, oh, yes. 2 minutes to go. He did that because the play clock resets to 25. Baylor was going to take 23 off of it. So I now know immediately, of course, anybody sitting at home knows after the next down and the next down, he's taking the second and third. The critical one was the first one. So what he did was he saved us 23 seconds because Baylor was going to take that thing down. They were already so far behind the sticks that they wanted to milk the clock a little bit before they even tried to press a little more. So first time out, we saved 23 seconds. Take the second time out, take the third time out. And I asked Garrett, I said, so we saved 23 seconds on a 25-second play clock because Baylor was going to take it down before snapping it. How many seconds was on the clock when you scored? He said, less than 20. I said, 15. There's your 23. So that happened because of when we took the first time out. If you wait, you're out of time. That drive doesn't result, most likely, in what it resulted in. So that was the precursor to what you saw for a drive with no timeouts. Now we had to strike that rhythm. Now we had to push the football beyond the chains or get out of bounds. One or the other. You got 2 choices. No timeout, you start on your 20, minute 14 to go. Plenty of time. No doubt about it. As long as you move the sticks. The quarterback in you doesn't freak out like people in the stands and people watching TV. You understand the inner workings of clock management. You understand, hey, just get first downs and we're good. Just first downs are the key. So push the football vertical. So we're pushing the football vertical. The scariest play was the first one because it was a tunnel screen. And now you're in danger of not pushing the football vertical. So Zach bailed us out. We get the first down. Clock stops. In comes Brandon. On we go. Now what ends up happening? Hudson makes a great grab to push us toward midfield. A great grab. It was on the highlights. I saw the WVU football account post today. Did you shoot that? Who shot that?
No, that was Andrew. Andrew and Ross were the ones that had that down the stretch.
Okay, that was a great shot. But a great grab by Huddy. So now we're pushing the ball upfield. Okay, so now everybody in the stadium is outside of Garrett Green, the nervous wreck. All right, including me. I'm on the sidelines. We're around midfield. All right. Well, Nolan Harvath, who's one of our assistant strength coaches, okay, a friend of Big Daddy's, one of our sideline buddies for the biggest sports bar in America. So Nolan and I, he's a quarterback junkie, so we always talk quarterbacks before the game, during the game, after the game. Do you remember the next play when Garrett against a 4-man rush? Now, to start with, the first half of that drive, Dave Aranda is running simulated pressures. He's showing certain guys and dropping them, but they're 4-man sim pressures. So up to midfield, he sticks with 4-man sim pressures. Well, up to midfield, the last 4-man sim pressure, Garrett takes it, tucks it, moves, runs right toward our sideline, ran into me.
Nice.
Okay. So I saw his face. I'm standing next to Nolan. Literally. I wish I'd known on the podcast because he would vouch for this. Garrett looks me right in the face. He's not looking at me. He's looking through me. Okay. Sprints right back out or even trots right back out because now the clock stops. So he's back out on the field. But I got to look right in his face. And I looked at Nolan. I said, dude, he's doing it. I said, I'm chill now. I know what's about to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just saw him. We're scoring. There was something about this calm excitement, this bundle of emotions that was just completely I can't even explain it. There was just a vibe to the kid who ran out of bounds right in front of me. You weren't stopping it. You weren't stopping it. One way or the other, that football was going to matriculate down the field. We were going to score. And I had this weird calm over me all of a sudden that I didn't have for the first 3 or 4 plays of that drive. I was like, wow, now I can kind of just kick back and see how it unfolds because I'm 100% certain it's gonna. I just don't know how. I don't know how. You're not going to stop that kid I just saw running about. That look on his face, the competitor, I can't even explain it. But I told Nolan that, and I didn't feel that way after that point. I was just nervous as anybody. So what ends up happening? Now the play. We run trips to the field. We have a single receiver to the boundary. All right. First of all, we went to vertical the snap before on the verse package to EJ. Well, that was the first time when we crossed midfield. Now Dave Aranda changes his blitz configuration. He's no longer in 4-man sim pressures. He goes to 5. All right. So now bear in mind, we have a backup center in the game. So what we do after the vertical to EJ, which didn't have much of a chance, they were expecting vertical and that corner got a heck of a cushion. So now we go trips to the field, single receiver to the boundary and Huddy. And now we use motion to motion empty weak. Owen, they brought up a 5-man pressure look. It was oriented to the field. Their will linebacker, number 41, was the sim pressure guy on the edge. Okay. So what they did, we motioned weak to his side. So now if you can just envision this in your mind's eye, you saw it on TV, it'll make sense to you what you saw as I explain this. So now you have Jaheim motioning weak and we're going empty. So that gives, first of all, Jaheim a free release. So he has no pass pro responsibilities, but now we're in true 5-man protection. There's no tight end to help. There's no back to help. It's mano-a-mano, R5 against whatever they throw at us. All right. Here comes Dave Aranda with a 5-man sim pressure, the simulated part. The will backer acts like he's coming, but he's not. On the snap, he bails to the flat. He's replaced in the blitz configuration by the nickel back over the slot to the other side of the field. So what they did was they outnumbered us to the right. Even though it's only a full 5-man pressure, 4 of those pressure defenders, 4 of those rushers came from the right side of the football. So they outnumbered us on the right side. Meanwhile, the communication with our quote-unquote backup center in the game was sublime. We checked it off. We caught all 5 defenders. It was 5-on-5, communicated perfectly, bought Garrett just enough time. What's happening to the weak side in the flat? How did Jaheim get open? Now, here's what happens. The corner, that Chateau, I can't remember his last name, number 21.
Yep.
He ends up staying in man coverage and shadowing Huddy up the seam on that skate.
Shades him boundary side while the safety stays up top.
So what happens is the will backer drops. He buzzes the flat. So he buzzes the flat very obviously thinking he has deep help. He thinks they're in 3. So he buzzes the flat thinking, hey, I got quick flat responsibility. His head's on a swivel. He lets Jaheim run on by. Why wouldn't he? Because he thinks he has deep help. Meanwhile, the deep help that he thought he had, the only deep help it could have been was that corner if they were in cover 3 with that corner having that deep third of the field. Instead, the corner shadowed Huddy back inside man coverage, leaving a complete void on that up the rail on that wheel route. That's what happened. So I asked Garrett after the game, I'm like, what played out there? And he said, I couldn't tell if it was man or if it was zone or if they blew a gasket. He just said, I saw him streak open. There was a play my senior year at Glenville, almost identical to the way this unfolded. We were down by 7 points, no timeouts left. We had to use our timeouts to get the ball back. They kicked it through the end zone. We started at our 20 with 50-some seconds left, down 7. We drove down to their 25. We're facing a 4th and 10 with no timeouts and 12 seconds to go. Down 7 when I was playing for Rich. We go empty, just like they did. Same thing. Trips to the field, twins to the backside. The difference was my weak slot was Chris George, my stud All-American Jerry Rice type guy, 430 catches, right? So we run a switch route. Same thing they did, except the concept with us was a true switch. It was the wheel route, okay, up the rail by the slot, and the sluggo by the X. Same concept, except we were meshing it out with a back out of the backfield with Jaheim. Well, what they did with us, the safety kicked off the hash to go over top of Chris, who was running up the rail where Jaheim was. So now they doubled him up. So I saw Bonbon, our X, split down the seam. And I'm like, I can't even explain what I'm seeing. Is that man? Is that zone? I just see my guy open. That's what Garrett saw, but it was an inverted version of that. So Garrett saw the outside up the rail open. Right, it was a reaction as much as it was a read. So he pushes the football, delivers a perfect throw. Here comes Big Daddy out of the tunnel to enjoy it. That is what happened. So it all starts with a backup center, great communication up front. Okay. Baylor, no, I don't know if our motion to the weak side impacted their coverage or they blew a gasket as a result of it, but there was some kind of miscommunication because you had one defender in zone, one defender in man, and it just wasn't going to work. And we attacked the perfect spot, but it wouldn't have happened had we not picked up that 5-man sim pressure. And those things are nasty. Now, we talked in the pregame show, 5-man sim pressures this year for Dave Aranda. That's one of his favorite looks.
Yeah.
In the past, that's what he really gets to you with. He's really messing people up with those 5-man sim pressures. You don't know which 5 it is, but here come 5. This year, not so much. Going into the game, I even had the numbers for him.
Yeah.
8 touchdown passes allowed, and they picked off no footballs with 5-man sim pressures. So it was almost the ideal look for us to try and attack, and maybe that's part of why it happened. But
well, and
everything
said,
about that's a thing of beauty.
Neil said post-game too, they rep that every day, have not run it yet this year. Rep it every day, have not run it. Always in the arsenal, right time, right place. And again, I would just like to say to everybody, you're welcome. Tubby McTubberson walking up the tunnel into the locker room. There's a TFL. There's a holding penalty. There's a missed field goal. Like you're welcome. I'm doing my part.
Well,
Zach,
thank you very much.
I did not mean for that to happen to you. I'm sorry. That's not on me. I'm taking positive, not the negative.
Did you see Garrett
superstitious
from where you were after the celebration? He's moving his hands in the air.
Mm-hmm. I walked. So again, my camera is set up for post game. I walk out onto the field. And I find Andrew and Ross, our video guys, and I go, look, camera's in there. It's set up. I'm not shooting a damn thing. This is up to you guys. Good luck, Godspeed. And they both go, don't worry, we got it. Like, all right, I'm going to be a fanboy and just walk up and down the sidelines and be excited with everyone.
So both of us are accounted for. Wes, we know where you were when this was unfolding. Owen, where were you?
I was at Brent Hatcher's house, sitting on the couch upstairs in his man cave, watching the game.
Well, you were
you better be back. You better be back in that spot for the bowl game, brother.
Yeah.
Owen called me on the team bus. You were on your way home from Brent's. Is that what you were?
I was actually watching. I just had got Friday we win the game. I'm so jacked up. I don't go to bed till 3 a.m. I got work in the morning. Mm-hmm. We work. I'm driving home. I stop at Brent Hatcher's, who's one of our drivers at UPS. He's got a nice little pad. He's got an awesome little game room upstairs. But he's got a huge big screen, and then he's got 2 other side TVs and just like college football mania up there.
Oh yeah.
So
ain't bad time.
Yeah. So I was up there in the old recliner, and I was like, we already talked about the unfoldings of the game at the beginning. So I was just sipping on my my Big Timber porters, okay, my 4-pack, and
you're going heavy, boys. Okay,
yeah, I was feeling pretty good.
It is wintertime after all, Sean.
It is.
Yeah, it is wintertime.
Listen, let's get some Guinness. All right, let's get some Big Timbers. It's time.
I know, and I just found out that Monster Energy now makes beer that tastes like Monster.
Oh,
Energy.
honey, no.
Caffeine.
Oh,
Be
honey,
careful.
no.
That's
Dude,
4 Loko.
This is 4 Loko all over again before they cook this stuff out.
Big O, you are too old for that nonsense. All right.
Hey, no caffeine.
I have a 4 Loko story.
No caffeine in them.
It can never be told.
It's just alcohol, apparently. But
Sean, I do as well too. Maybe we'll tell
it's
it.
Just
when we wrap this thing up here. Yeah, no chance.
On the Wedge Buster episode.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
As we wrap this thing up here, a final thank you to our friends at Fortis, to our guy Rick Lewis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Visit fortis.us.com. Well, boys, I mean that's a heavy one to close down the regular season.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Yeah.
We will find out bowl matchups here. Well, I guess not until next week, right?
Next Sunday. Yeah, should be.
So, but we're bowling. We're 8-4, and I will say this: as much as it might pain all of us, I'm rooting for Texas on Saturday.
I know.
Because if Texas goes to the college football playoff, we bump up in the bowl pecking order, and we get a little bit juicier of a matchup.
Here's the
so
way to look at it, Wes.
hook 'em horn.
We win either way. We win either way.
That's
fair.
fair.
That's a good point.
Very fair.
That's a good point.
If
And
Texas
we
loses, you
already
always
won because Oklahoma is not in the Big 12 championship game. How about some crazy finishes? I mean, ours, obviously, we talked, Jed, a little bit about Auburn and Alabama earlier.
Yeah.
That Oklahoma State BYU game, my goodness, that as
Ridiculous.
well, too. Just absolutely insane. You always got to love the final week of the college football season.
Trip to Jerry World on the line.
Trip to Jerry World on the line.
BYU brought it.
The
Guys,
Storm
I'm
and
telling
Mormons,
you,
man.
Show up in this league, or you'll be sorry you didn't. I don't care what the record is. I don't care who you're playing.
No doubt. No doubt. We had the big snowstorm between Iowa State and Kansas State. It was I'll tell you what, it was a fun final weekend of the college football season. Obviously, we're not going anywhere. We will have a little bit different of a week this week. No preview episode later on in the week, obviously, but we'll still have our Pick'em segment. We'll do a little conference championship edition of our Pick'em segment. We'll obviously give our trophy for our winner throughout the season. I don't know, spoiler alert, but he might be wearing an Avon Coburn jersey right now on the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, Chad's looking down like, wait a second, do I got the Avon jersey? And yes, still a Phil. Is this the last Phil Steele Friday, Jed, coming up this week?
No, we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a Phil Steele Friday for championship weekend, conference championship weekend, and then we talk to Phil. What we're gonna do is at some point get together
a bowl season,
for
Phil.
a bowl episode, really to talk WVU, but there's some other bowls that we'll discuss as well. But I'll say this: when you look at the Big 12 championship game, here's what I'll close with. I say we win either way, because if Texas wins, yes, there's a chance Texas goes to the playoff. Not guaranteed. There's a chance. And everybody gets knocked up a spot. But if Texas loses, then we don't have to worry about Texas going 2-10 in the SEC, bragging about winning the Big 12 last year.
Yeah.
That's how much better the SEC is than the Big 12. We're 2-10 here. We won that league last.
They can shove it up there. Texas went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, so they can shove it up their bum with that one, as far as I'm concerned. All right, you could put that narrative to rest. But gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. Sean, if this is the last time, I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. But if this is the last regular time, thank you as always for your time, partner. You know the people enjoy it. We we will absolutely.
Yeah.
But that'll do it. That's right. Yeah, there we go. After the bowl game. How about that?
Yeah, why not?
And then, Sean, do you know? I know it's way too early for me to be asking you this. Do you know if you're going to be at the Combine or not in February?
Do not know yet, because Combine is always basketball. I might be with women's for any kind of tournament runs or anything like that. We had one magical run in 2019, and I think about it often. Me, you, and Salty just out in Indianapolis.
It was fantastic. That was my maiden voyage at the Combine.
That was your first one. That was mine too. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, well, regardless whether Sean's there or not, I'm going to spread the gospel of Zack Frasier there in Indianapolis for 5 or 6 days. But obviously it's the end of the regular season, but where I'm going with this long rambling end is that the content will not end here on this program. So 8-4, let's get a good bowl matchup. Let's keep it rolling here. Let's get to 9 wins, and let's build some positivity, some momentum, some big mo as we head to the offseason. For our handsome tubby man of gold, for our producer Skylar Callahan / co-host Skylar Callahan, the signal caller Jed Drenning, and the runaway beer truck Owen Schmidt, I'm Wesley Euler. Thanks so much for rocking and rolling with us this season, folks. Plenty more to come. As always, you've been in the gun.